Nikki Haley has been in the pocket of the open borders establishment donors her entire career, and she's a globalist. You know, she likes the globe. I like America first. The people in this room like America first. And Nikki Haley's campaign is being funded by Biden donors. Did you know that? Biden donors.
The globe. That was Donald Trump, of course, who is responding to the fact that Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has effectively slid down the polls in the GOP primary. And so Trump has shifted his ire to Nikki Haley as her campaign has picked up some steam. Now that's why Trump made the statements that you just heard in the video we played. And that's far from the only assault on Nikki Haley and her record. Trump does still have a massive lead over her in the national polling. But according to Politico, people close to Trump still believe that she poses a threat in this primary cycle. There is increasingly a belief among Trump allies that a Haley second place finish in the January 15th Iowa caucus could give her momentum heading into the New Hampshire primary a week later. And she is, in fact, surging in the New Hampshire polls as well. So Trump is hoping to destroy her chances of winning the New Hampshire primary, but how? Trump is shredding Haley for her long list of ultra wealthy donors, and that includes billionaire investor Stanley Druckenmiller. You also have the Home Depot co-founder Ken Langone supporting her campaign, metals mogul Andy Sabin, and LinkedIn co-founder Reid Hoffman, who's also a Democratic donor. These are all individuals who are supporting her campaign and providing some campaign funding to her. You also have Citadel hedge fund founder Ken Griffin and Jamie Dimon, the CEO of JP Morgan Chase, also expressing interest in backing her campaign. By the way, let's pause for laughter when you hear that Jamie Dimon identifies as a Democrat. So with that said, while it's true that Trump takes plenty of money from the rich, there is a difference between Trump and Nikki Haley when it comes to support from small dollar donor. Trump gets a lot more support from small dollar donors. The proportion of Haley's fundraising coming from small dollar donors, defined as giving less than $200, was less than half of Trump's through the end of September, according to a Politico analysis of the latest available campaign finance reports. And thanks to numbers like that, the Trump campaign has framed his showdown with Nikki Haley as a battle between a true populist and yet another corrupt Washington, D.C. ghoul. In a statement, Trump spokesman Stephen Schwang likened Haley to Mitt Romney and Paul Ryan, calling her the latest carbon copy from establishment central casting. So we've got more video of him going after Nikki Haley. Before we get to it though, Cenk, thoughts?
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense. I think he's right on the politics here, again, unfortunately. And he's also funny, and it helps him. A lot of times he doesn't mean to be funny, but he is, and that also helps him here. When he says she likes the globe, like, what does that even mean? It's like, it's funny because it's so ridiculous.
No, look, first of all, the way he says globe is funny, and you can't help but laugh at that. But he knows exactly what he's doing, and I think we should be, like, I think there's this desire to kind of undermine him as an idiot who doesn't know what he's doing, but he knows exactly what he's doing. He's speaking to his base who absolutely hates globalization.
No, I get it.
Yeah.
And I'm mainly giving him credit here for the reasons that I'm going to explain. But no actually intelligent person says, she likes the globe. Okay, that's not a way of phrasing things that makes sense. If it was the first time and he said it kind of awkwardly, who cares? It was the 7th time that he said something awkward after all these years, who cares? It's the 1,000,000th time, right? But that's also an advantage because he speaks like a person who is not in politics and who's not a studied fake politician, right? Which winds up being ironic advantage for him. But overall on the content, look, there's parts of it that I agree with. I think we should take care of American citizens before we go spending money on war, etc. But and there's parts I don't agree with. I I don't mind the globe. I don't mind the rest of the planet. But yes, his audience does, and his base does. That's definitely true. And they understand where he's going with it, and so do we. It's just he sounds like a buffoon sometimes. You can be honest about both those things, right? So anyway, the reason he's going after Haley is obvious. She's now pulled up to within 4 points in New Hampshire. She actually has a real chance of winning New Hampshire, which is the first time that anyone has had a real chance of beating Trump in his state in a long, long time in a Republican primary. And his strategy also makes sense. He's largely, sometimes he can't help himself, but he's largely ignoring lower ranking candidates because you don't want to give them oxygen. That's why he didn't do the debates, etc. That's standard political strategy and he's sticking to it. But when they pull up to number 2, then he bashes the living crap out of them. And that is also good political strategy. That's where the Democrats go, oh no, you can't do that. That's hardball politics. Yeah, you do carrots and sticks. He's right about that on a political level.
Everyone calm down. This is not me supporting Donald Trump as a candidate, but I'm gonna say something positive about his campaign strategy here because it is a little bit genius. So the campaign strategy that the Trump campaign has pivoted to in New Hampshire is shockingly clever, and I'm curious to see how it plays out. So Shane Goldmacher, reporting for the New York Times, writes that Trump's super PAC recently produced a mailer in New Hampshire that calls Nikki Haley a big supporter of Trump's MAGA agenda. It then tries to attack former Governor Chris Christie as an anti-Trump Republican. The twist, according to a person working for the super PAC, is that the mailer went exclusively to independent voters in New Hampshire who have voted in Democratic primaries. The idea is that tying Haley to Trump will lure those independents to Christie, which could help the former president stay ahead of Haley in that state.
Yeah, so
that's smart.
Yeah, it definitely is. It's definitely a good strategy. Let's be honest about it though. I mean, Trump didn't come up with that. He's sanctioning it, so good enough he gets credit for it, right? But that's a political operative that came up with that. It's inconceivable that Trump did, but it's okay. It's okay. It's his campaign. He gets credit for any good strategy. And there's one thing that could stop that strategy, which is Chris Christie dropping out. Now, before I wouldn't have said that. I like Chris Christie being in the race. I like that he was the only candidate on either side who was willing to aggressively criticize Donald Trump. I mean, until a couple of days ago, Joe Biden was totally missing in action, and Chris Christie was doing all of his dirty work. Having said that, it's now the jury's in. He's not going to make it. And meanwhile, he's pulling away super important points from Nikki Haley in New Hampshire and a little bit in other states, but mainly in New Hampshire. So Chris Christie should drop out and back Haley. I loathe Nikki Haley, but I don't want Trump ending democracy. Okay, so there's one other thing that I want to get back to in regards to Trump's political take that also hinges on, like talks about policy as well. That's really good. So look, guys, if you notice in the Nikki Haley clip, he's talking about the donors and how they corrupt the system. That is going to be intensely popular, not just with Republicans, but with independents. And so that's the part of his strategy that the establishment media never talks about, that is actually the most important, best part of his strategy. Because when he tells voters, aren't these guys all crooks? Look at them taking money from all these Wall Street titans. Everybody goes, yeah, that's totally true. Even Democratic voters know that that's true, right? But all the Democrats are like, no, never criticize the donors, never criticize the donors. Well, all right, then you're gonna give the populist mantle to a guy who's a fake populist, and that's why he's leading by a significant amount against the Democrats as well.
I mean, you would have to reject the money from the donors, right, in order to do that effectively?
Yeah, I mean, that's yes, but of course none of the Democrats are only, but it's not 100% that you have to do that. Remember, Donald Trump doesn't reject the money from the donors. He took $100 million through the PACs from Sheldon Adelson twice in 2016 and 2020. $100 million. It's the most anybody's ever taken. Yet the moronic Democrats never once criticized them for it. The only place you can find it is a couple of news articles in my book. Okay, so Anna, my point is Trump takes tons of giant cash.
No, I know that, but Trump,
and
unfortunately,
then he attacks on that same issue anyway.
He does.
But he has this enormous advantage that all the other Republicans and the Democrats are so hooked on donor money, they don't even criticize Trump for the record amount he's actually taken.
Hey, thanks for watching that video. We really appreciate it, guys. And we appreciate it if you become members, because that allows us to be independent, honest, progressive, all the things that you don't get from corporate media. And all of that is because of you guys. Hit the join button below and become one of us, become a Young Turk.